Welcome back to Bonkers for Boro, and what a match we have coming up this week. Of course, we're talking about Middlesbrough's contest with Leeds United at the Riverside Stadium on Tuesday night, a match which has a huge set of ramifications for both set of players, with both teams battling and scrapping to fulfil their own ambitions over the course of this season. Now, of course, Middlesbrough are challenging for the playoff places in the Championship. Leeds United, they're going for automatic promotion. Both sides were in desperate need of a win at the Riverside, and so with just a few games left of the season, both teams are going to be desperate to get those points to really boost their chances of finishing the season how they would hope. Now, if you are enjoying these videos, please do hit like on this video. Please do hit subscribe as well, and comment below with what your thoughts are going into that match with Leeds United. It's going to be a big occasion at the Riverside with probably a sellout crowd, with lots of fans desperate to see Middlesbrough get one over on their rivals. And it's going to be a really, really quite entertaining game of football, you'd think. In recent years, there's been a lot of goals and there's been a lot of entertainment. There's been a lot of drama, and I'm hoping that this one will be no different. Now, you only have to look at the Championship table to see exactly why it means so much to both teams. Now, starting with Leeds United, they're sitting in third position in the table on 82 points, 1 point off second, 2 points off top of the table. Clearly, they're very much in the battle for automatic promotion, and they'll be hoping to manage that to avoid the whole drama of the playoffs. Now, you will remember that last season they did fall just short. They ended up in the playoffs and ended up falling short and not getting promoted, despite Daniel Farke's side recording, I think it was 90 points over the course of the campaign, which was quite remarkable. This season, very much the same. Leeds on track for another remarkable campaign. They've scored 79 goals in the Championship, making them the top scorers by an absolute mile. So they've really done very well this season on the overall picture. Things just haven't really kind of worked out for them in the last few weeks, which we'll get on to. Middlesbrough, as you can see, things are looking a lot more rosy as far as we're concerned. Sitting fifth in the table, sitting very much in the driving seat as far as the playoffs are concerned, which didn't look like it was going to be the case just a few weeks ago. I personally have completely written off Middlesbrough's playoff chances maybe 3, 4, well, probably even 2 weeks ago, to be honest. Middlesbrough looked like we were way off the pace. We looked like we just completely fallen away and that the season was set to fizzle out. But a couple of really strong results over the last few weeks have really done us well. Obviously, that draw against Luton, the victory against Oxford United at the Riverside, and then that victory against Blackburn Rovers at Ewood Park on Friday night has really put us back into the driving seat. I guess the scenario that Middlesbrough have been, that we've fallen victim to over the course of the campaign, that Middlesbrough have dropped a lot of points. It is very much the same for the other teams in there. There's no team that's a real standout candidate to secure that place in the playoff, or those 2 places in the playoff that we seem to be vying for. Everyone seems to be dropping points, and so really it's just a case of taking it game by game, as boring as it sounds, and as much as Michael Carrick says it, and it frustrates me to hell and back, saying we need to take it game by game. It really is that simple at this stage of the season. As a Middlesbrough fan and following this team, you can't go any further than one game, because we could quite easily win against Leeds and then drop points against Millwall at the weekend. You look at the other teams that we're in competition with in Bristol City and Coventry and West Brom. All of those teams are capable of putting in really top performances on their day, but they're also capable of dropping points. And that's why this playoff battle is just simply like something I've never seen before. It's always competitive. It's always a battle. There's normally an informed team who starts to run away with it at this team, but everyone seems to be dropping points. It just so happens that Middlesbrough are the team that have hit form at quite possibly the best time of the season. And for me, really hoping that Middlesbrough can continue that and just squeeze into those playoff places, which would be really interesting. Sunderland, obviously, they're in 4th position there. They're 15 points ahead of Middlesbrough, so they're not realistically going to be caught. Depending on how Leeds get on in the next few weeks, you'd imagine that Sunderland will probably finish 4th. And so that means that the way the table looks at the moment, it could be teeing up for a really, really interesting playoffs. If Middlesbrough were to get into 5th or 6th position, the prospect of potentially playing Sunderland or Leeds United is mouth-watering at best and anxiety-inducing at worst. It could be a really, really stressful thing, but one step at a time. We've got to get into the top 6 first, and first up, we've got Leeds United. So here's a little overview of how Leeds have been performing this season. So 3rd in the Championship, as we said. They've got Daniel Farke in charge, and he's really kind of proving to be a bit of a divisive figure at Leeds United. On one half, you've got supporters who are really quite happy with what he's been doing. Leeds have performed really well over the last couple of seasons. As I said, they're the top scorers in the Championship by an absolute mile. They've got one of the best defences. When they play well, they play really well. They have stuttered a little bit in the last few weeks. They've got just one win in their last 6 games, which has sort of seen them fall away. I think a lot of people thought that Leeds were going to be winning the Championship, and they look very much on course to do that. But Leeds have started to fall away a little bit in the last few weeks. Have really sort of started to stutter at the worst possible time, and Burnley are looking strong. And Sheffield United, they dropped points just at the weekend, but they're also looking strong. So Leeds will be really, really keen to get back to winning ways against Middlesbrough. If they could put in a really good performance and get a good win away from home, it could really reignite their season, which they'll be hoping to do to squeeze into those top 6 places. Now, Joel Perreault, he's their star man. He's got 21 goal involvements in total this season. Looking like a really good player. We know exactly what he was capable of at Swansea. He's taken a little while to warm up at Leeds United, but he's really starting to show what he's about now that he's the main man, really, at Leeds United. And the last result at the weekend was against Luton, a 1-1 draw. And as Middlesbrough know, as Michael Carrick would attest to, it's a really quite tricky place to go at the moment. I know that Luton have struggled on the whole this season, but Kenilworth Road is a ground like no other in the Championship. It's a really tough place to go. The pitch isn't particularly great. It's a completely different game of football when you go there to what maybe Middlesbrough and Leeds have been used to in the way that they would like to play the game. So a draw there, I think, again, quite divided amongst the fans of Leeds United. Some saying it was awful to drop points, others saying it was probably a decent point in the context of challenging for promotion. But they will certainly be hoping to play a good game against Middlesbrough in what will undoubtedly be a very different contest, with both teams attacking well and trying to get themselves on the ball and ultimately try and score as many goals as possible. Now, Middlesbrough, we're looking in a really good place at the moment. As I said, I'd completely written off our chances of getting into the playoffs just a few weeks ago. But the last couple of games, we've just really shown that sort of inner metal. And you've got to give real credit to Michael Carrick. It looked like his days at Middlesbrough were very much numbered. Middlesbrough's players, they weren't performing well. Confidence was down. Just everything was looking like it was... I suppose like the wheels were sort of starting to fall off a little bit, and there was a lot of speculation about his future. A lot of people saying that he was going to be sacked. I think it did seem like he was under pressure. Middlesbrough ended up having to put out a statement through the Northern Echo and Teesside Live, saying that they were backing him, and they were backing him to help Middlesbrough to try and get into the playoffs. And it was very much one of those dreaded votes of confidence that fans will be so familiar with, having played a Football Manager, where you pretty much know that the end is near. But I think what's happened since then has been pretty remarkable. You've just really kind of seen how Michael Carrick's leadership has rubbed off on the team. The players seem very much to be battling and fighting for him. Players are stepping up to the plate and showing their leadership. Aidan Morris and Hayden Hackney in the centre of midfield are showing their leadership in very different ways. Aidan Morris is very just tough tackling, hard player, really that determined kind of player. And Hayden Hackney is just sort of like taking on the responsibility of being one of Middlesbrough's most important players, both in and out of possession. We've also seen Johnny Howson come back into the team, shows great leadership from his point of view. He's been injured, crocked all season, looked like his season was pretty much over, and without competing in a single training session, came on and played against Oxford United and was just absolutely outstanding. Played against Blackburn, he was outstanding again. I think he got Neil Maddison's man of the match on BBC Tees in that game, and he was just absolutely flawless. It's just the quality that he's got, his ability to read the game is just unmatched, and something that I will do a video on this at some point about his future and whether he should be kept at Middlesbrough. In the long run, he is now 37 years of age, certainly not getting any younger, and he's on these sort of 12-month rolling contracts. But I think from what we've seen in the last couple of games, he's certainly a player who offers something very, very different to this Middlesbrough team. Someone who offers real quality, both on and off the ball, really, on and off the pitch. Someone who's a real leader and someone whose presence has been really felt. These two players in the picture as well. Delano Bergzorg did very well against Blackburn. His end product wasn't quite there, but he looked a little bit closer to the player who did very well earlier in the season. And Tommy Conway has just been absolutely outstanding. You talk about leaders, and he's certainly someone who is leading by example from the front. I guess he's someone who's quality. His goal against Blackburn was just absolutely astonishing. That Dennis Bergkamp-esque goal, that flick over the defender, which left him on his bum, running through on goal, lashing it past the goalkeeper, was just the sign of a player in total confidence. But it wasn't just that. It was the fact that he was leading from the front and closing down defenders and putting in tackles and geeing on his teammates. And Tommy Conway is just certainly a player who's just been an absolute hit since he arrived at Middlesbrough last summer. Playing alongside Latty Lath, or turning out to be a replacement for Latty Lath, really, was always going to be a tough test. And he is a different profile of player to Latty Lath. But certainly Tommy Conway is proving himself as one of the best players in the Championship, or one of the best strikers in the Championship. And as I said, with Middlesbrough hitting form at the right time, Tommy Conway seems to be hitting form at the right time. And that's really, really important. He's got a good relationship with all the players around him. When you look at his relationship with Hayden Hackney, they seem like good pals both on and off the pitch. He links up well with Bergzorg, with Finn Azaz. He's also got a really good relationship with Kelechi Iheanacho as well, and the two of them, they do seem to have struck up. The seem in the clips that you see on social media, they do kind of seem like quite contrasting personalities. Kelechi Iheanacho seems quite serious, and Tommy Conway seems like a very light-hearted, sort of extroverted kind of player, but the two of them seem to complement each other both on and off the pitch, and they both seem to be spending a lot of time together, and that seems to be paying dividends as well, with the two of them providing I suppose a striking partnership of sorts on the pitch as well. So those two players seem to be getting the best out of each other, and I think as far as this match against Leeds is concerned, I think you'd be a brave person to bet against anyone other than Tommy Conway from a Middlesbrough persuasion to get on the score sheet, because he's just absolutely red hot in terms of form at the moment. So if I was going to be predicting my team for the match against Leeds United, it's pretty much it's exactly how Middlesbrough finished the game against Blackburn at Ewood Park. Obviously, Neto Borges went off injured. Michael Carrick's press conference on Monday afternoon said that he didn't really know how long Borges was going to be out for, but that's almost inevitable that he's going to be missing the match against Leeds United. Rav van den Berg, there was a bit of debate over whether it would be him or Johnny Howson that would start alongside Borges against Blackburn. Ultimately, it was Howson who started the game, and Van den Berg was on the bench, but he came on and replaced Borges and looked really solid for the rest of the game. There is an interesting, I guess, conundrum there, because Michael Carrick did say that Dale Fry was back in contention. He's back in training, and so that's another option that Middlesbrough have got at centre back. And obviously, Dale Fry is one of the best central defenders at the club, and someone who I think should typically be starting. But I think given how well Middlesbrough performed in the last couple of games, I wouldn't be breaking up that partnership at the back of Van den Berg and Howson. I think for me, Howson is probably one of the most undroppable players in our team at the moment. It all probably depends on his physical status and condition. Obviously, he's played the last couple of games. The last game was on Friday, so it's a relatively quick turnaround. And as I said, for a player who hadn't even trained before that match against Oxford, it is going to be a tricky one. And Michael Carrick will have to make a decision on whether Howson is available to play in this game against Leeds United, with the match against Millwall coming up at the weekend. You'd think that he would want to play against Leeds United. We don't know what Howson's plans are beyond the summer, whether he'll extend his stay with Middlesbrough, potentially retirement. So I think for a player who is from Leeds, he's a Leeds lad, it's a huge game for Middlesbrough. You'd think that Howson would be absolutely chomping at the bit to be involved in this one. So that'll be interesting to see. But I personally would think that he would start this game if he is fit and available alongside Van den Berg. And then the rest of the team is pretty much as it was. I think Illing Jr. has been brilliant on the left, really made that position his own, and is keeping Ryan Giles out of the team. Anthony Dijksteel, admittedly, we don't have a huge amount of competition at right back, but he's been decent enough. Mark Travers, completely forgot about him, but what can you say about him? He's been absolutely outstanding. Really, probably one of the best players that we signed in January, I'd say. He's only on loan until the summer, but I personally would really like to see him stay on a permanent basis if Middlesbrough could pull that deal off. First team opportunities aren't going to be coming to him at Bournemouth, so I think for Middlesbrough it'd be a great opportunity to try and sign him. We've seen so much from him, and I think he's better than Seny Dieng. I think he's someone who will challenge Soldrin, but I think, to be honest, I think he's really kind of exceeded expectations since he came to the club in January. So he's certainly starting against Leeds. Aidan Morris and Hayden Hackney, probably the best midfield partnership in the Championship right now. Those players really complementing each other. And there's a lot of interest in Hayden Hackney at the moment, but his performances just seem to be getting better and better. So undoubtedly those two players will be starting there. In attack, it all sort of depends on whether Michael Carrick wants to rotate his team a little bit, really. You've got people like Marcus Force, who's been coming off the bench in the last couple of games and looking decent. Morgan Whittaker, he's really starting to hit a bit of form when he's come off the bench against Oxford and against Blackburn. He's been really, really impressive. Showing a burst of pace, a bit of skill. He's been making the right decision in terms of playing the ball to his teammates. So he's been looking really, really good, and you couldn't envy him if he did, or you couldn't begrudge him rather if he did earn a place in the starting 11 for this match. But I think, as far as I'm concerned, based on how well we've done against Oxford and Blackburn, I'll be keeping the formula exactly the same as what it has been. So that's keeping Bergsorg on the right, even though I think he's better on the left, but he has done well and it has provided that sort of balance to the team. And Finazaz on the left, again, don't think it's quite his best position, but it is a formula that's been working. Kelechi Iheanacho, he did well against Oxford. Well, in the second half he did. First half he was god-awful, but in the second half he was a lot better. So I want to see if there's more to come from him. He is a player who has undoubted quality, and this will be a huge confidence boost for him if he was to find the net against Leeds United. So I keep him in there. And as I mentioned on the last slide, I think his relationship with Conway is really starting to sort of pay dividends as well. So I'd be really keen to keep both of those players in the team. Conway's on a hot scoring streak. Iheanacho, he did score against Oxford, but he also grabbed 2 assists against Blackburn. So his end product is starting to materialise there as well. So that's why I'd certainly keep them in the team as well. As I said, the main decision is probably around Dale Fry and whether he would come back into the starting lineup. But as far as I'm concerned, Howson's undroppable, and I think we really need his experience at this time of the season. And against Leeds, which could be a really tricky contest, I think it'll be absolutely crucial to keep him in that team. So I want to hear from you going into this match at the Riverside Stadium. I'm going to be there. It's going to be a brilliant game of football. The weather's nice at the moment, so I think it's going to be a really nice, really good atmosphere at the Riverside. I think the Leeds fans will be well up for it. The Middlesbrough fans will be well up for it. I think there's going to be huge ramifications for both teams, depending on the outcome of this one. So it's going to be a really, really interesting game. But I want to hear from you and your score predictions for this game. So drop into the comments below. Let me know what you think about the match against Leeds and whether you think that Middlesbrough are going to be in a position to pile more misery on Leeds United going into this contest. Drop into the comments below, and if you have enjoyed the video, do hit like, do hit subscribe, and I will catch up with you next time.